right?
Let me get the live stream going on YouTube. Okay, floor is yours, Tracy.
All right. Good morning, members of the MAG Technical Advisory Group. This meeting is now called to order. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items and on items on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jeff Sheets.
Present.
Greg Pataz. Jim Keane. Tom Bacon. Tom, I see you on, but you're muted. No, we're not getting any audio from you, Tom, but I can see
nodding.
you.
Wave.
Yeah, wave confirmation. Mike Chikaram.
Present.
Sasan Paridazadi. Feroz Machia.
Here.
Justin Fair. Chris Dalmelin. Steen Hambrick. Kim Clark. Robert Fisher.
Present.
Tracy Mills.
Here.
Jared Morris. Steve Holiday.
Here.
Phil Osmond. And we do have a quorum, but we are right at our quorum.
All right. Our next item is call to the audience. MAG provides the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. Members of the public are invited to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. Craig, have we received any online written comments or call to the audience?
We have not received any comments of this or any other agenda.
Excellent. All right, we're going on to item 3, approval of the November 16, 2023 meeting minutes. Could I have a motion to recommend approval of the November 16, 2023 meeting minutes?
Motion to approve by Mike Chikaram.
Do we have a second?
Second, Steve Holiday.
And can I have a voice vote for those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Craig, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their camera?
I think everyone has turned on their camera.
Not Steve.
Oh, Steve, hold on. I'm still waiting for the screen to crash. There's Steve.
Do we need to ask for his?
All right. No, I just got a thumbs up
Good.
from Steve. So we are good on that.
All
Motion is
right.
passed.
Excellent. All right, on to item 4, 911 Study Committee update. MAG staff will provide an update on the 911 Study Committee. Is that going to be Audrey or Nate?
We'll tag team it.
Okay.
I just wanted to give a brief update and let everybody know where things were at. The study committee recommended approval of a transition to state contract services. We're going to be entering a period of transition, and we've negotiated that with ADOA in terms of maintaining the existing system. And I'll go kind of through the outstanding issues. Nathan, do you want to provide some context before I do that?
Yeah, thanks, Audrey, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This kind of concludes, if you will, in one sense, but also initiates a transition. So the conclusion part is the MAG 911 Study Committee has been meeting for about 14 months, doing a review and analysis on our current Maricopa Region 911 system. The great news there is through independent contractor vendor doing that analysis, found that we have a robust, redundant, and resilient 911 system in our region. So a lot of credit goes to City of Phoenix, Maricopa Region 911 staff, as well as our collective public safety answering points managers and staff in our region. However, with that being said, the review by the contractor also extended to the state of Arizona's state contract managed services through their vendors. A series of options were presented to the study committee from that review that was accepted. That report in the summer of last year had a number of options. I believe I recall about 7 options presented for consideration. Additional conversations by the study committee, but also with the co-chairs that included Chris Brady, the city manager of Mesa, as well as Kevin Phelps, the city manager of Glendale, also including city manager Phoenix Jeff Barton. Those 3, as well as Maricopa Region 911 staff and MAG staff, had conversations with ADOA, Arizona Department of Administration, who has oversight over state 911 issues, trying to better understand elements of the state contract services. Those were great conversations that were held over a number of months in the summer and fall of last year, all leading to a recommendation by the 911 study committee to proceed with the transition to state contract services. That was an action taken by the study committee on January 4th of this month. That did move forward to the MAG Management Committee for their consideration last week, and they did recommend approval. The next step in this process is to go to the MAG Regional Council on January 31st, I believe, looking at the calendar quickly, yes. And they, assuming that they're going to approve the action, marks a transition, as I mentioned. So the state and their vendors have a proposed timeline where we could see migration transition of our public safety answering point in the region to state contract services by the end of this calendar year. We think that's a little ambitious, just given some challenges with procuring equipment and related. So that is a proposed schedule. We intend to keep up conversations with ADOA and their staff with regular check-ins and updates. Of course, we have our 2 regular policy or public safety committees, including the Public Safety Answering Point Managers Group, as well as the 911 Oversight Team. They will continue meeting regularly. In fact, there's a joint meeting of those 2 bodies next week on January 25th. And the main part of that agenda is listening to ADOA and just starting to roll out these issues of considerations regarding the transition and migration. So it's an opportunity for those 2 committees and their members to hear from ADOA directly, and as a group, as 2 bodies that get that information. And again, pending regional council's decision later this month, starting to move through this period of transition. This will also mean that MAG staff, Maricopa Region 911 staff, all the public safety answering point managers, we will need to keep up a strong level of communication to monitor any issues with the transition. So there's a real opportunity there for continued collaboration in the region to monitor issues on our 911 system. And I think I'll pause there. That's kind of the overview of the past 14 months and where we're headed in the next 11, 12 months. Again, this decision really marks a period of transition. A lot more work is ahead of us. There was a number of elements that were discussed by ADOA in the fall months that we did present to the study committee, management committee, and intend to cover those with regional council. I'll let Audrey Skidmore kind of walk through some of those issues that are, some have been resolved, some of them are a little bit outstanding, and we're just going to have to work as a region and with the ADOA to kind of run these to ground and hopefully have a positive outcome. And I'll pause right there, Madam Chair.
So thank you, Nathan. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of these outstanding discussions and areas that we've been talking about. Starting with policy routing, it works a little differently under NextGen 911 than how it works in the existing system. There have been some issues as agencies transition over with where it'll automatically roll over to the next agency that that's participating at a specific time if the call hasn't been picked up. And because of staffing or the volume of calls, the calls don't get picked up and they roll to the other agency at higher rates than they do under the existing system. So we have asked ADOA to present to a joint meeting of PSAP managers and oversight committee members next week to kind of go over how that works and what the additional options they have are so that we can have opportunity to be good neighbors and make sure we don't surprise anybody with the volume of calls they're receiving. I think some of the agencies will be looking into maybe formalizing some of those agreements. Right now, it's all handshake. A secondary part of this issue is where your particular instance is hosted. So one of the things that the agencies need to think about is the agency you're going to roll your calls to probably shouldn't be on the same host as you, because if one of you goes down, both of you go down, if the hosts go down. So those kind of issues, we want to raise those to those groups so that as the PSAP managers are making those decisions, working with the state, they're thinking about how it interacts with everybody else and how to make the system most resilient. So that's one of the primary issues we've been discussing. That meeting again is January 25th. We had talked to the state about data center locations. At the next RFP cycle, that'll be a good opportunity to talk about issues regarding geostability and issues about the weather implications of locations in terms of making sure that the locations are the most resilient and least subject to those kinds of disruptions. So we've had those discussions. We've also talked about regional procurement and contracts. The vendors are okay with the agencies working with them individually or in a group. There are benefits and costs to doing both of those. And it's one of the issues that I think regional partners are going to have a discussion about. But we also want to make sure that when they go forward to do the re-procurement, when the current contract is up, that there's an opportunity for the region to speak together to issues, especially things like SLA, data center location, other options like that, funding allocations as we go through that process. So we're continuing to have discussions on that front. One of the big areas that we've had discussions about are service level agreements. We really wanted to, we had federal engineering look at the contract, look at other contracts around the country, and we wanted to make sure that the service levels are consistent with what we would expect for a major metro. They made a number of recommendations. The state has been able to get their vendor to move in a couple small areas on that right now, and they are continuing to work with them. They have recognized that there is a need to adjust and are continuing to see what they can do under the existing contract. And we would certainly want it addressed in the renewal of the contract. So we're continuing to see some movement and interest in pursuing that. We also have some additional clarity around the existing funding process, some discussions around optimizing and streamlining that process in the future, but we're still having discussions and need to have some further discussions about clarifying how the extras are going to be allocated and what that process looks like for the things that aren't just those core services, and how that funding process works and how it's adjudicated. Finally, this was a big area for us. We wanted to make sure, because the existing system has to function through the entire transition process, that it was fully funded. So the existing system will be fully funded 30 days beyond the transition of the last agency. So MR 911 will be able to continue to provide the level of support that we expect through that end of the transition. We felt this was really critical. We didn't want to lose any of that support. Especially since, if it doesn't go smoothly, we might have to fail back. We want to make sure that that happens. Mesa and Phoenix are necessarily going to have to go at the end. So the biggest partners are going to be at the end, and we need to make sure that this goes very smoothly. And another kind of sticking point that we negotiated with them was the current implementation project for next gen core services for MR 911 that had been on hold. That has been released and should be completed by the end of February. So those services should be available within the existing network by the end of this February. We also got an initial transition schedule. They're reworking that. I'll have Craig send out a link to the presentation, which has the one that we presented at management committee, but I'm expecting to get a newer one. They are showing completion by the end of 2024. Obviously, they consider that a draft timeline. They have to order lines for all the locations. They have to schedule with the agencies. Some people are moving their PSAPs. So there's a lot of moving parts there. So I would just encourage everybody to think of that as the planned timeline, but understand that that is probably not what is actually going to happen, although I'm sure everybody will do their best. And Nathan, did I miss anything? If not,
Gotta get to the unmute button. No, I think that covers it pretty well, and just want to thank Christine Hambrick, who served as your MagTag rep to the study committee.
nope. Actually, it's Tracy Mills is our
And
MagTag rep.
Tracy Mills as well. It was 14 months, so there was transition and turnover. So appreciate all those who stepped in, and if any of the others have participated, thank you for kind of monitoring these conversations. So thank you.
Yes, and the co-chairs did express their appreciation to all the participants in this process, and we echo that. I know it was kind of a long process. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there was a lot there.
Thank you, Audrey and Nate. I do actually, it was a very eye-opening experience to sit on the study committee. What I wanted to ask you so that it was more, so that you could help everybody else understand. I know there was a level of concern that MR 911, may start abandoning ship, essentially, how is that being handled? Are they what happens if people leave because they know they may be out of a job? Like how is MR 911 handling that concept of level of support if their technicians leave or if their staff leave?
Steen, do you want to address it or do you want me to?
If you have information, Audrey, feel free.
Okay. So the city has committed to find those people positions within the organization.
Right.
So they are doing what they can to keep those positions filled and make sure people are comfortable. I know that Liz also has contingency plans for using contracts
or contracts or okay.
where appropriate. I think I would prefer to let her speak directly to how that would be done, but she is actively monitoring that and pursuing having backup plans in place. And so I'm not comfortable speaking for City of Phoenix beyond that point,
right?
But it is something we have actively discussed and has been discussed with the city managers because it is critical to keep that system functioning at a high level, which is also part of the reason we wanted that firm commitment from ADOA to fund adequately that system all the way through the end. And we appreciate their support.
Very good. And then you have the initial transition schedule. You said you would
I'll send a link out to the presentation we did at management committee.
okay.
And I think Steve was raising his hand.
Are there any agencies currently using state services?
There are a number of them have transitioned or in process of transitioning. Just off the top of my head, Scottsdale, I know they're complete. Wickenburg. I haven't
We're in
confirmed.
process.
Yeah, there are a number in process. But there are some that have already switched over, and the lessons learned from that include why we're having that meeting to just talk about policy routing and what that means.
Thank you.
I know that was something that came up that I was never aware of. If it was just a handshake. I mean, I know if, say, for example, something happened in Surprise, we would transfer to Peoria. But this sounds like this is like an automatic thing. If calls aren't answered in time, you have to make some decisions. And I was kind of curious if there would have to be, IGAs or something like that in place in order to actually handle that
So
routing process.
even the agencies that have transitioned have been doing it on a handshake, but
Mhm.
that's really an agency question, what you're comfortable with. The concern is you want to make sure that you're not allowing your low staffing levels or staffing issues to impact the agency that's helping you out. And some agencies have found that the default hold time or answer time,
Mhm.
it's like 24, 26 seconds, is not long enough to really reflect what happens in their call center. And
Mhm.
so they find a large number of calls transferring. Large is relative, right? It depends how many you have and how many you're getting, but enough that it was surprising. Let's just say that. And so we find that with bigger agencies that time needs to be lengthened a bit. And I think everybody will be in a good position to make those decisions. They just need to be aware because it's not exactly how it happens right now.
Right. Well, thank you. Are there any other questions from the team? All right. Well, this item is on the agenda for information and discussion only. We'll move on to item 5. Committee members will discuss current plans for, we'd like to discuss current plans for addressing AI technology. This was added kind of late on the agenda. I'm sure that every agency's probably using some form of it, or whether they know it or not. And I know there was a brief discussion last time about policies and starting to form those policies on AI. And so just kind of, we want to throw it out there to see what people are doing. If they want to, anyone wants to share where they're at on their policy or their strategy, that would be great. Anyone?
I can start. This is Feroz from Glendale. We do have actually a system in use since last September, a generative AI system. We're seeing a lot of positive outcomes or value delivery in terms of, unfortunately, timing was such that we couldn't prepare the presentation for today's meeting, but we'll definitely do a presentation and a demo of a system so you could see it live in action. Obviously, nothing as far as AI is concerned should be put in use without having a policy or the guardrails around it. So I know Tempe developed a policy. We kind of followed the similar kind of approach, developed a policy, made it a companion policy with our data policy that was already in existence, because no AI discussion can happen without taking into account the significance and the importance of data. So that was already in existence, so we added the AI piece to it. We are, as far as our strategy and approach is concerned, we're guarded in terms of how we leverage it. So we go through a very deliberate process of identifying opportunities and identifying areas where it should be deployed. so that we can control the outcomes and we can avoid any kind of ill effects of using it in an uncontrolled manner. The biggest consideration there is security. It's privacy, data privacy, those type of things that we want to make sure that they don't create unnecessary risk or challenge for us. Overall, just from a cybersecurity point of view, just like it adds efficiency to a legitimate operation, it adds efficiency for bad actors to devise bad products that can cause havoc and damage. So we're constantly, from a cybersecurity point of view, looking at that threat landscape and adjusting accordingly. At a high level, that's kind of where we are. There are obviously many different questions that one has to consider. We're not there yet to really handle the large language model, whether they're open source or proprietary, and how do you bring them in, and the compute overhead that is required if you were to build something from scratch. All those things are being considered. We have not made a definitive decision in terms of how to approach those areas just yet. So that's good at a high level to just open up a conversation.
So I'm curious, based on a process. So a department wants it for something, right? So what do you go through? Do you have say does that go through your like IT governance committee, and then you have a set of criteria? I mean, is that set in your policy that it needs to check these boxes? I mean, just high level, like.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, there is a governance process that applies to all projects that are submitted for approval. So we go through that review process, and we're looking at the financial viability of undertaking the process. Now, from an AI perspective, it will go through another layer of review, because now you're talking about what the impact would be for this AI solution. So, for example, we started our deployment of generative AI within IT organization. We focused on our data as opposed to just going and sourcing data from external source. So we control everything within our environment. We reviewed our data ahead of time to see the application of this generative AI solution will yield the kind of results that we would want. So we did that kind of a due diligence to develop a solid business case. But we stayed within the confines of a very tightly defined area. Once this was deployed, we are in the middle of extending that solution to our HR. Now, within HR, we are defining it for a very specific use case, which is when we start our benefit enrollment, we're taking that area and helping deploy the solution in that area. What that would do is that would reduce the calls that our HR department receives during this busy peak period. So you can truly introduce efficiencies in those areas. And the interface for them is going to be Teams. We are doing Teams. If you have something else, you use Slack, you could do it through Slack also. And so it's a controlled and it is tightly managed. We're not going where using it. One of the items that was introduced in New York, which was if you're using AI to make hiring decision, the laws in New York require that you have to be able to audit that algorithm and provide the data, sort of kind of, a report out, and people can request that. So we're not at that level just yet. We're doing it in a manner where it reduces unnecessary risk. We're not going towards the citizen-facing solutions just yet. We want to make sure that we test it out in various different scenarios in internally facing applications, and then move on to the next level. So that's kind of our approach. But every project goes through, feasibility and viability and approval process. And it's not just that we want to do it because it's a new cool thing to do from a pure techie point of view. It needs to make a business sense also.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Does anybody have any questions or updates on their AI process?
Audrey.
City of Tempe, I'm going to reach out to you so that we can get a hold of your policy.
Well, for sure. And our policy kind of focuses on the ethical AI use. It sounds like I know there's a lot of administrative policies around the Valley as well that are very helpful. I might be reaching out to others for their administrative policies, which are something that is good for everyone as well. I did want to mention as well with Faraz, it seems like you all, Faraz, are doing a lot of really great work, and applaud you for all the work that you're doing. In City of Tempe, some of the ways that we decided to implement was of course at the project level, but also more consistently during procurement, we have a required question that makes that I'm sure that's something for us that you worked on as well, that any software that comes in to the city, they have to say if it has an AI component. We do the same, similar, not the same, but similar steps that Faraz does as well with governance committee. I was interested to hear if anyone is putting in place any sort of firewall rules related to AI, just to see as AI, especially those that are more prevalent and free for users and people can get on, if folks were kind of checking on that. I think I've done since our last call a couple rounds of that, just checking to see what the usage is. We used to do this, of course, when Facebook and other social media came out. It used to be a common thing to say, "Oh, how many people are browsing Facebook every day?" So I don't mean to be overbearing about it all, but I just had some interest in that, and we did see some usage of kind of free off the shelf generative AI sort of stuff. And so we follow up with those folks just to make sure that they're kind of aware of what some administrative guidelines may be. But I was just interested in the discussion overall, so thank you.
So I can share what we are doing. Obviously, introducing a system that's in production encourages others to look at other solutions and try and use it. So from a security perspective, we do monitor that in various different ways. So if we see now, we do allow flexibility. Say if somebody wants to get some content written up on ChatGPT, as long as you're not sharing or putting any kind of PII. So similar principle applies as you would apply it to your data loss prevention type of thing. If you would, so we have deployed those kind of controls to have visibility. I'm not doing hard enforcement, so we do a gentle nudge to say, hey, be careful if you're using this, or be careful if you're going here. See how that works. If a little bit of from an employee point of view, self-regulation would help. If not, we can certainly tighten the controls around it, so we prevent people from going to certain sites where they can leverage, AI-based solutions, randomly without control. So it's more of a little guidance, a little nudging, that kind of approach right now. And so far it has worked, but things can change on a moment's notice. One crazy visit can create chaos. But my security team is scared, worried, and vigilant all at the same time.
Tracy Steen has his hand up.
Good morning. A couple things with regard to blocking specific AI tools. It's definitely something from a City of Phoenix perspective that we're evaluating, we're considering. We haven't done it yet, but I think that if particular tools are identified that pose a risk to the city, that we may in fact go ahead and do that. With regard to a quick update on what the city of Phoenix is doing with AI, I'm happy to say that we have, through a very long and exhaustive process, we've drafted what I think is a very robust AI policy for the city. It is in draft form. Next week, I meet with a select group of department heads and our city attorney to review it. Hopefully, we pass that gate very quickly, and then we'll submit it for final approval, probably in the early February timeframe. With that being said, I think one thing that it does, besides talking about ethical use and all that kind of stuff, is we do establish a governance process for approval of Gen AI specific tools within the city, and it's not starting with IT, it's starting from a business perspective and from a risk management perspective, and then it will go to a subcommittee which is focused on IT and security and privacy. And then from there, that'll be kind of the mechanism for approving them. But the one thing that this policy will establish is that no Gen AI use within the city will be authorized without it going through this process. So that's, for us, it was really important that we not leave it up to the employee to test it or bang away at it and potentially lose data or not fully understand the potential risk or what happens to the data if it's fed into these tools. So that's the approach that we're planning to take. Any questions?
No, that's a good point of involving risk management as well. And, coming from the end user, who wants it, they don't always think about what happens, what's the risk. And, I think somebody had mentioned data loss prevention as well. Just a simple, I want to write this thing and I'm and I include these people. Well, now it's out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's concerning and definitely something to get our arms around quicker, sooner than later, for sure. It can be used for good. We know that.
Well, I'm sorry. Can I just say one more thing? Within the city of Phoenix, I mean, we have about 34 departments, and one thing that and a lot of them have some small to medium sized IT team that supports them. And we're seeing a lot of vendors in this space going directly to them and pitching their tools and pitching their capabilities, and that's part of what we're trying to protect the city from is this demonstration mode. Show us what you can do, and proving it out, and then potentially losing control at that point. So we're trying to get a better handle on what's going on from outside in.
I'd love to see those policies as well. I just ran into that yesterday in one of our budget meetings. Our Parks and Rec department said, "Oh, we demoed this thing and it could count crowds and it can do all these things, but we can." I'm like, "What? You did this?" And we have it recorded, and I'm like, "Oh no, not good."
So question for both of you: how do you? So when is it going to reach out, whether you have an embedded IT there or not, or whether you have just a business leader or business management team, they reach out and they're trying to sell these solutions with AI appended to all of their solutions now. How do you control that? I know Jared talked about procurement you need to have, but for us, we go through a review process, a technology review process when they come in. We're adding a set of questions that are specific to AI. Two simple things from a data perspective, from algorithm and transparency of algorithm that we want to see. Some are able to talk about it, but none has been able to clearly demonstrate. So the solution we implemented was purely based on our data. The algorithm was clear, and that's why we moved forward with it. So it was in our four walls. But how do you how do you keep tabs on those conversations and make sure that they come to you? And I'm not going to get into some bad experiences that forced, literally we had a meeting with city manager said that it should go through, and it shouldn't be that way, but we're in an environment where people in rush to get to something kind of cut corners. So how do you enforce that? Any tips and tricks would be helpful. AI or no
About
AI.
enforcing. I mean, we're just trying to be better business partners, right?
Oh.
I mean, because we're centralized here in Surprise, a centralized IT, but we've really tried over the years to be better business partners. So they want to involve us early, make those relationships. We've got people that, you know, they're kind of our eyes and ears, right? We hear that this demo is going on. Can we get invited? You know, because the vendors are always going to be vendors. They're going to hit whoever and they're going to say, oh, IT doesn't need to have anything to do with it. It's a simple cloud solution. And they're finding out that's not the case. And, you know, we're still a lot smaller than some of your other agencies, but so we're trying to get ahead of it. And like I said, just trying to be better business partners to make them feel like they can come to IT. We're not scary people. We're there to help them work more efficiently, leave the hard work, you know, the IT work to us, you know, let us help you.
Yeah.
And that's really how we're trying to sell it.
I can tell you from the city of Phoenix, you know, we do have a safety net where we do review all tech spend before it can be procured. But, you know, that doesn't protect you from demonstrations and proofs of concepts and things like that.
Yeah.
What we're working on actively right now is trying to kind of move the needle closer to kind of the ideation kind of phase, you know, when departments are thinking about things rather than when they're ready to procure things.
Yeah.
And so we're strengthening our BRM role within the city, and we're trying to put more governance on the intake process where, you know, when they're providing information to our BNR department, you know, for submissions that, you know, we're getting information at that point, in addition to having our BRM having more active engagement with the departments to understand what their pain points are and what they're trying to do.
So, do you encourage that business partners or departments give us what they are trying to solve for rather than how they want to solve, so that we provide that input because we bring that capability to the table? Or
you know, that's, you know, I wish that, you know, I think if we were centralized, my life would be a lot easier than it is right now, because it's a very hybrid situation here. There's a lot of departments that have, you know, a lot of autonomy from a tech perspective. And so oftentimes I do hear about things when they're ready to procure. On the other hand, there's other departments where we are their IT provider.
Right.
And so, you know, we have a lot more visibility into those things, obviously. So it's it's really about the collaboration, and it's really about trying to, you know, understand, you know, establish and build upon those relationships so that we are having those conversations before they're ready to say, this is how we want to do it. No, we want to know what they want to do, and then partner with them in terms of how they want to do it.
Yeah, same here. You know, it's building those relationships, you know, putting together our governance to, I think it's making them think ahead of time a little bit more on, this is what we need to do, help us get there, right? So we can, you know, we obviously, IT thinks of things differently than maybe the department would. We try to future-proof things. We try to, you know, see if this solution might fit another department, so that we're not, you know, having these silos of databases and things out there, or applications. We're trying to look at it, you know, be that kind of mothership of let's look at it here, and then let's see if it fits the needs of other departments. And
there's a financial aspect. There's economies of scale. So if you have a platform that can go across and solve multiple problems, you introduce much more financial efficiency in your spend.
Right. Well, I know we got a little off topic on artificial intelligence, but that's okay. You know, this is all great stuff, right? So that was just really on the agenda for information discussion only. Do we want to get into our item 6 on our agency updates? If anybody wants to share anything going on that that the region might be interested in, now would be the time to share. Or I could pick on people. What do you think? There's some quiet ones out there.
Tracy, just on the last item, I wanted to thank Jared for being so willing to share his draft policy. We're going to be modifying that as well.
Perfect. Yes. No need to reinvent the wheel when we can.
Absolutely.
Anybody have any updates or they want to share?
I would just encourage you to stay engaged as the 911 changes go forward.
Has been very interesting. So we're doing our next gen 911, cut on February 21st. And then our dates are kind of moving on our actual transition, our state managed service transition. We originally were going to cut on the same day as the Comtech cutover, but there's some issues with hardware delivery, so we're having to push our actual 911 cutover. So we're that's looking maybe end of March, early April for Surprise to move. So I'll keep you guys posted on that.
I can provide one small update. It's a big update from us from City of Glendale point of view, but small in a sense of a bunch of other things are going on. So we're in the process of remodeling our city hall. So last year, second half of last year, we were heavily involved in moving people to satellite locations in different temporary locations. For the next 2 years, they're going to reside there. And one of the things that became apparent to us was that a lot of fiber connectivity to the rest of the campus was going through City Hall, and it was in not a state of good repair. It was kind of old and weak. So we had to quickly come up with a alternate path to build that out. So we just got final estimate from the vendors who are going to do the work. So we're going to start that in earnest and get it done middle of next month so that demo can start and the construction can start. So it's a scary, tricky. Hopefully, what we have planned is good enough with enough contingency that we feel good about getting that readout done so that there's no disruption in service, because it does connect our data center and other critical facilities. So that's kind of top of the mind activity that's going on. So when we meet next time, I can report back and say, yes, all green, or come help.
Well, we wish you luck on that. Are you having a lot of people work from home? Was that an option, or?
No, so it is hybrid, and we didn't force. We are actually, as sort of kind of strategy, making every employee, when we deploy the PCs or laptops, so everybody's now using laptop with docking station. So you are essentially mobile. So if you have to be remote, you can be. What we estimated from a space perspective in temporary location, we thought we would be able to fit 1-for-1, but that's not the case. So each department and the managers are deciding how they want to operate. So there's a sizable number of population that is remote. So.
Well, I feel for you. We remodeled our IT space a few months ago. So we were all displaced for 2.5 or 3 months, just IT. And it was quite disruptive, especially during end of budget year, start a new budget. So we were working on different floors wherever we could work, and some people went home, and it was tough for just our small little group. I can't imagine it on a grander scale.
And so this whole thing, one of the challenges, the lessons learned, and we've been fortunate that we're getting good support from city management office in terms of encouraging departments when they're looking at CIPs and others. So if there is a technology component, they need to fully cost it out. This move didn't account for so many things, including this fiber rerouting. We're going to cover it. We're not going to take, even if we're going to take hit, but it will be taken care of. But that should not be the normal operating model. So we have a long way to go in that journey, but this was a big issue. So how it manifested for us, we have certain equipment that sort of, you follow a little bit of N+1 kind of strategy to have spares available just in case of things blow up. We ended up consuming everything because we were moving so many people. So I don't have N+1 situation. Now with supply chain issues, that becomes even more tricky. So now my strategy at this moment is hope and a prayer that nothing breaks and we stay operating, but that's not the way to go.
Yeah,
So
you're reactive.
we've constantly communicated that, and we're getting good support. So hopefully we'll get back to at least having essential pieces, one spare available just in case. So we'll see.
Good luck. I feel for you.
Yeah.
I've moved my data center twice, so I
There you go.
don't
So,
want to
yeah.
do it I don't want to do it again. I've moved PSAP twice too, so I don't want to do that again. Not while I'm, here.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything to share?
Hi, this is Steen again. I have one thing that the city of Phoenix has started what we're calling a CRM assessment. So we're essentially looking at all of our resident-facing services that are, have some form of CRM or workflow engine or what have you. And we're trying to get a complete inventory of where throughout the entire city all of these things are, what the current state is, how residents access these things. And the goal is in the next fiscal year is to issue an RFP that we can then improve upon that. So, one of our tech strategies in our strategic technology plan is geared towards improving the user experience. And this is at the heart of it, is that right now there's a lot of disparity in terms of look and feel, how to access, number of accounts you have to remember, things like that. And so we're trying to really streamline and make much easier how residents will do business with the city. So I think once the assessment is completed, that may be something that we can provide an update and let you know kind of our lessons learned, what we found out, and what we hope to achieve moving forward.
That would be helpful, and timing would be just right for us because we had that request. We pushed it out a little bit because there's already enough work that we would not be able to undertake this one. So if you guys are leading, then we may rely on your learnings to benefit from it.
Sure. And we do have a My Phoenix 311, which is essentially kind of a hub for city services. But once you get past that front end part, it becomes very clunky. And so that's what we're trying to improve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're I think we are done with volunteers, right? Are there any requests by this technology group for any future items? I think Faraz, we've got you on for potentially next time. When is Tempe going to be ready to talk about their broadband initiative?
That's probably not great news, but City of Tempe with, I think we've all had the residential tax issue that has affected all of our cities. So this is
Yep.
one of those projects that is partially put on hold because of
Oh,
that. So
gotcha.
City of Tempe will proceed with its RFP to have vendors provide solutions to the city, but we're looking more along the lines of what City of Chandler Mesa and others have done, where we're looking more for an industry response rather than a homegrown city system. There's lots of reasons for that. I won't get into an entire presentation on why. Maybe it'd be useful to have a retrospective on those dynamics, but City of Tempe will likely no longer be making its a municipally owned fiber network available to residents in the same way that we hoped a mere 6 months ago. So
Gotcha.
it's sad news, but not much to present when there's not much to present.
Yeah, no. We'll shelf that for a little bit then. Any other items that I think AI is still in the forefront, and if we want to keep some discussion on that, that's great. But if anybody has anything else, feel free to speak up or let us know.
Madam Chair, can I just, with regard to AI, I think it would be helpful for this body in terms of, are there practical uses that any of the members have actually applied and they're getting great value out of? I think we can do a lot of knowledge sharing here, and I think if you have solutions that are working and that
Yes.
other cities can leverage, I think that's a great.
So I'll share our deployment and implementation. So you'll be able to see the strategy. We're planning to do that presentation, and we'll be able to show you a live demo of the system. So we have two solutions that are kind of deployed in different use cases. One we talked about, we started with IT, HR is on board, and there's a plan to move it to sort of library and in other areas also. But right now it's IT and HR because we can deliver more value. And my goal is to be able to demonstrate that there's a value realization. We publish dashboard in terms of efficiency, time savings, and whatnot. The other solution I won't be able to demo next time is for our city attorney's office. And I'll give you at a high level what that does. And again, my focus is to not go out of our four walls in terms of leveraging data, leveraging those models. And especially when we talk about HR and when we talk about city attorney's office. But what it does, it allows efficiency in terms of an attorney's work. So I'll give you a very basic example just to illustrate the point. So if you're in city attorney's office and you're drafting a contract of some kind, and you want to know, you want to find out the clause that you used some 10 years ago in a specific contract. One way for you to find out that information is if you know what that contract was, and you go directly to that contract and pull that information out, because it's in some kind of a document. And the documents are basically shared in some files, share or wherever. So, or you go through similar contracts that you produce over the years and go through one by one and identify. So this would allow, this AI piece would allow an attorney to precisely write the requirement and pull out that language that was already available to them. And bring it forward so the attorney can decide if he wants to use it or tweak it. And it introduces a tremendous amount of efficiency in terms of drafting contracts and doing all those things. Similarly, in terms of review of contracts, it will allow them to introduce some efficiency. So that's the kind of a solution where we can truly demonstrate the time savings, efficiency, accuracy, all that kind of stuff. There's a research component to it. So they use legal insight. I'm not claiming that I'm going to completely eliminate that, but I am going to drastically reduce that because that's a subscription they use to study case law and things of that nature. So that's another area that they would be able to benefit. But that's sort of kind of icing on the cake kind of a benefit. I don't want to say that I'm going to completely. So those are the examples of implementation, so to speak. And when I say you have to be opportunistic, so how the city attorney's situation came about was this move from the city hall prompted us to solve the problem that they were having, which was basically we have a green sheet process. I'm sure all of you have in some way or form. Every time you're reviewing or approving contract, you fill out literally this green sheet and then you hand it off to the city attorney's office. It was a clearly paper-based process. Now, because everybody was moving in a different location, that was not a conducive process to follow. So we digitized that entire thing. And as we started building that out, we said, okay, let's just add this other module for attorney to use for their benefit. So what started with just automating a single form and a process to now adding this companion piece to it to introduce more efficiency. And there are more applications of that solution, but I'm just keeping it focused on few things so that I can demonstrate value, and then we can introduce other benefits along the way.
All right. I think we're gonna move on to item 8. Next meeting. Craig, do you have to do like a recap of anything or before we go to item 8?
No, we pulled that off of the agenda a few months
I
back.
just remember that. Okay.
I do
So,
need to just confirm that Jim is online. I see you on, but your camera and microphone is muted. Are you on, Jim? Just so I can get you added to the minutes.
Jim, are you there? Jim Keen? I see.
I know he was struggling to get in. I see him on, but I don't see his camera. or his
Right.
microphone.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe
All
you can follow up with him afterwards and see if he was having a microphone issue.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, so the next meeting of the technical advisory group will be on Thursday, March 21st at 10 a.m. With no further business, today's meeting is adjourned, and this item was on the agenda for information and discussion only. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you. Nice seeing all of
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Everybody.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Thank you.